Our host.
Okay. I'm Wayne Neyens, and I work for Gottlieb, design games for Gottlieb, and I was fortunate enough to hire John Osborne
Me.
as a designer for Gottlieb.
I came in 1972. Started the day after Labor Day in 1972.
Wow,
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
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 But when did we interview you?
In May.
In May?
In fact, let me show you something here.
Well, we were looking for a designer, and fortunately, he sends a letter into the company.
And here is the letter that you sent me.
Oh, no. And then we sent a letter back, and we finally got together.
There.
All right.
Read it.
I wrote John a letter on March 29th, 1972, replying to your letter of the 23rd. We would like to have you come to our North Lake plant to discuss possible employment after your impending graduation. Perhaps you could fly to Chicago on a Friday afternoon in mid-April and return home later Saturday afternoon. We have a nice new hotel a block from the plant. Now it's an old folks' home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
A block from the plant. We would, of course, supply you with plane, transportation cover, and cover your other expenses for the time of the visit. Please advise me if this suggestion would meet with your college schedule. Sincerely,
Actually, that was Ed McGuire. Yeah, he actually wrote the letter. Yeah.
He was our personnel manager at the time, Ed McGuire.
Yeah. Now, can you imagine how I felt when I saw that letter?
Oh, I bet I can imagine.
Well, fortunately, I had an in with Wayne because I had written to him before with things I was working on as a hobby, and he helped me with parts and things. So I kind of had an in because I wrote to Bally, I wrote to Williams.
Did you hear from them?
Well, I did not write to Chicago Coins because I always got the impression that Chicago Coins was kind of a schlock company.
Yeah.
I would get letters from the same people who signed their name differently. One time I asked them, I had a shuffle alley called Bowling Alley, and I wanted a schematic for it. And I wrote to them and I said, I need a schematic for this game. They wrote back and said, our records indicate that we have never made a game by that name. I'm looking right at the game, you know. That was typical Chicago Coins. That to me was Chicago Coins. I never heard from Bally, and Williams said something I had to go down and talk to the people at Struve Distributing first. You know, our distributor in LA. I didn't know what they were trying to tell me, you know. So I only wanted to work for Gottlieb anyway, so it just worked out.
And we're glad you came.
And then about 3 weeks after I started, paycheck stub. It was my third paycheck.
Your first paycheck.
Yeah.
I don't think he's worth it. $160.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we are.
Well,
that
actually,
is fantastic.
Actually, I got quite a surprise in the interview because, well, when we first met, we met out in front of the hotel. You picked me up in front of the hotel because I was so late. They didn't have a bus. They were supposed to.
We didn't meet you at the airport.
No, you said they had a bus and they were supposed to. And I called them. They never came. I called them again. They never came. 20 cents I invested in those calls at the time. They never came. So I got in a cab and then I got to the hotel. At the hotel, there was a convention of like Bichon Frise dog owners. So there were these poodle-like dogs all over the hotel. It just added to the wildness, you know. I was on the 11th floor, so I could kind of look out and keep an eye on the plant.
And you looked in our direction.
Yes, facing our direction.
We were east of the hotel by about a block.
Yeah.
But there was nothing in between that would obstruct the view.
So then you came and picked me up, and that's how we met. And we went to Stevens Steakhouse, and that's when I met Bob Smith.
He didn't come with me to the hotel.
No, okay. you were by yourself. We met at Stevens, yeah.
Okay.
And then that was also, we talked about,
Did we buy you a hamburger? Or?
At Stevens?
Yeah.
Stevens was a steakhouse.
We had a
steak. It was a high-end restaurant, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought pictures of my collection, and we chatted, and that was when you asked me if I was colorblind. You wanted to make sure I could see the colors on the wires, you know, yeah. And, well, that was that. And then the next day, it must have been, we interviewed at the plant. I saw the plant. And Ed McGuire wasn't there. It was Saturday, so nobody was there.
Uh-huh.
And when you finally said, if you're satisfied with us, we're certainly satisfied with you. And you said, what do you expect in salary? Well, this was new territory for me. I knew this was going to come up, and I asked my mother what she thinks. What's going? I don't know. I have no idea. And she said, probably, for a beginning engineer, I'd say maybe 10,000. 10,000. Okay, all right. And I took that back to my counselor at Fresno, and he said, "Oh, you'll never get that. Oh, geez, 8,500 if you're lucky." Well, I didn't like that. I thought all you can do is say no.
Sure.
So when we had our meeting, I said, well, no, I'm thinking around 10,000. You know what he says? He says, well, we start our engineers out at 10,400.
You nearly fell off the chair.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Well, this is my kind of company.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Gottlieb did pretty well. We always did. It was a great company.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
And anyway, there you were. And somebody took you on a tour. Was that Alvin?
It was you.
I
You took me on a
of the
tour.
plant?
Again, the place was quiet, and I met Alvin because Alvin was in the very back working on a punch press.
Well,
I remember he climbs down out of the.
He climbed up and looked at it probably.
Well, but he
didn't do any work on a punch
no, but I
press.
always thought that was Alvin. He'd do anything, and he
Yeah.
climbs down and he wipes off his hand and apologizes for his dirty hand and shakes my hand. Yeah. And I met Judd.
Judd
I
was
remember
there?
how, because I remember when I wrote the thank you letter, the next week, I remember mentioning, I was glad to meet Judd, and Mr. Weinberger, but he must have just come in that day or something, on the Saturday.
Well, he probably came in on Saturdays occasionally, yeah. So then what happened?
Well,
So then you went back home.
and then drove out.
We actually gave you a firm answer at that day?
Yeah.
That day
We had a fixed, so it would be the
And then you were to come back whenever you...
the day
got
after
to-
Labor Day was
Yeah.
the target day. Yeah.
And so we had a new designer. Yeah. Designing in the old days, of course, nobody designed anything. It was just everybody copied everybody else. Nobody, designers were,
Yeah.
things just happened and we copied each other. And then we got into, as the game got more complex, and we got into designing. And Harry Mabs was our designer at Gottlieb, and he was getting old, and of course I was there, and I started designing, and so then I got old, and we got Krinsky.
Krinsky, well, he was there when I started, of course.
Yeah, and
He started in
and
53.
Krinsky was a designer, and of course he was getting older. Now he's starting to get older too, and he's been there quite a while, and we figured we needed another designer study behind Krinsky, someone to come up behind him, and here comes John along. Just as we're talking about it, we get a letter from John.
Yeah.
And we talk. We ought to bring in some young kid that can learn the business and become a designer and be a free thinker, and we break him in here. And John comes, and we were all happy to have him. And
Eddie was a good designer.
he worked out fine for us. We had a great time.
Yeah.
He, the Gottlieb people were all alike. We were very similar people. We were no carousing, no drinking, no.
Well,
No.
I'll thank you to speak for yourself.
Well,
In terms of the company, I know we never did.
yeah,
it in the
we never
company,
partied.
Right, yeah,
We weren't a party company like Williams and some of the.
In fact, the only party the company ever had was the 25-year party.
That was one
And,
of our, that was our big party for the year.
That
yeah.
was it. I mean,
But,
when
we had a turnout, didn't we?
we had a turnout. I couldn't believe it. I mean, even today, even then, it seemed incredible that they had that many people that had been there 25 years.
Yeah.
When I passed my 10-year anniversary, there was nothing. Nothing was said. Nothing. No acknowledgement at all.
No.
25, and these 25-year parties, they would ask everybody to stand up who had been there 25 years. Over half the room would stand up. Everybody there had been there since the beginning,
And
practically.
then they'd ask how many have the 40-year pin.
Oh, yeah.
40 years. And
Yeah.
I have one of those.
Yeah.
40 years. Yeah.
God.
It's the same 25-year pin, but they put a diamond on it.
Oh.
So it's
Oh.
the
You have
same.
to show me that. I don't remember ever seeing
Never
that.
seen it?
I don't think so.
I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
I have it.
There's something going back a little bit, just an original, one of the old envelopes.
Oh
It's
yeah.
an unused envelope from,
1140 North Gloucester.
yeah.
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 John, we've been friends a long time, and I don't know too much about you, but where were you born?
No, well, I was born in California.
In Fresno?
No, in Southern California.
Southern California.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. And
what town?
well, Pacific Palisades is where I live, near Santa Monica, between Santa Monica and Malibu.
And what year was this?
That I was born?
Yeah.
48.
Maybe
Yeah.
if you don't want to give your age away, well, just say approximately.
48.
And 48.
48. Yeah.
Oh
I'm
my
exactly
God.
30 years ahead of
A youngster here.
you. Yeah.
We have a youngster
We're
here.
30 years apart.
30 years
We are
apart.
30 years
That's
apart.
right.
Yeah.
I'm
See?
30 years older.
Yeah. See?
Don't tell me.
Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody how old you are.
Yeah.
Because now they're going to add it together and find out how old
Uh-huh.
I am, and I don't want that.
Well, I can remember my dad holding me up at our cage to watch the ball come down the playfield. I
Is
had
that
no
right?
idea what was going on, but it was just
He
just
knew,
fascinating.
instinctively, he knew you were going into the pin game business.
Well, maybe, I don't know, but just the whole thing with the shooter and the push shoot and the balls and the arch, it was a really interesting thing.
Did you always live in Palisades?
Yeah.
All your growing up years?
Yeah.
Then you graduated high school,
Right.
and how did you end up at Fresno?
Well,
Fresno State, is it?
Fresno State. It's now Fresno University, but it was Fresno State. And I've always, again, all this time, I've been interested in games. And we had a game when I was real little. My dad got a pre-flipper game of Bally Vogue, and I learned to play with that.
It's in the family.
It was I was about 7 when we got that thing. I wish we still had it. But then that went, and then for my 12th birthday, I got enough money to buy a flipper game from a friend of my dad's.
And which game was
Chicago
it?
Coins Sally, which is still in my collection. That was 1948 too.
My goodness.
Yeah. So I've been playing with games and collecting them and repairing them all along, and I knew I was going to be in engineering. And my dad was an engineer at Douglas, so the interest in mechanical things, electrical things, sound recording. We always had music and record players and record changers and record cutters and things like that in the house, And I went to Fresno because they accepted me, and it was not too far, not too close to home. It was 4 hours drive, 4 hours door to door, and 4 hours if I flew door to door. It seemed to be about the same by the time you get to the airport and everything. But it was a good distance. I liked Fresno, majored in engineering, and my senior project to graduate was I built a pinball game. I built a game from scratch, a real game. And that was the one with the shooter on the left.
And that's the one that brought you into the business.
Yeah, that was Southpaw.
And you called it
Southpaw,
Southpaw.
because the shooter's on the left.
And the shooter was on the left, and I thought that was remarkable. It showed thinking and thinking outside the box,
Well,
as they would say today.
Yeah.
It showed you could you weren't locked into what we were doing. You could go off on your own and do designing. I thought
seemed like free thinking at the time.
Yeah, sure.
When
Well,
you're
it was.
early
It
20s.
was.
It seemed everything.
Now maybe you look back, it wasn't, but it was. It was
Yeah.
very. It was very clever of you, and it came to my attention. It grabbed my attention. I'll tell you.
It was,
I said,
it was a
that
fun
guy can
project.
think. So
It took me about 2 years to build it.
to build it,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
John, was that an engineering project as part of your education, or just something on the
Well,
side?
no, that was part of my education. To graduate, you had to do some big thing. Some people would rebuild an automobile engine or something like that for the automotive division, and my division was electrical, and this is what I wanted to do.
What did the other guys in the class
I
design?
have no idea. I
didn't-
just don't remember.
Didn't talk among each other.
Yeah, but I don't remember. I just don't remember any. I was so I had to be very focused on what I was doing, plus my classes. Plus I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was busy time.
Sure.
Busy time. Spent a lot of time working on that game. built most of it in the dorm room. You know?
Yeah. Well, without too many tools around and everything, it must have been quite
Yeah,
a
yeah.
project.
I will tell you though that I did not build the cabinet. The cabinet was a bingo cabinet.
Did
a
you
light
paint
box.
the cabinet or?
Oh yes, indeed. I painted it black because
Black?
there'd never been a black pinball. Not that it's not new now.
Didn't you ship it into Gottlieb?
No, well, I just had the movers bring it with all my stuff when I moved back.
Because I know having seen it. At
Yeah,
one
you
time.
saw it in our apartment. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a game. He was just a kid.
Well, one of the
Oh,
first
my-
things you had me do was really didn't have a place to sit. I sat in your office for a while because you wanted someone to rewrite the service manual. Remember that? You know, the service manual that we
Yeah,
published.
yeah.
Well, you said it needed a lot of rewriting. You wanted something bigger, more comprehensive. You gave me a typewriter, and I started working on that because I like to write it.
I don't recall that at
Yeah.
all. No.
And I worked on that over and over, and you
When
corrected.
did I finally give you that room over there to have for yourself to work in?
Oh, that was later because.
It couldn't have been too much later.
Well, once I got out of your office, you had the guy that was building lightbox test fixtures,
That
Bill
was-
Johnson.
Who?
Bill Johnson.
Bill Johnson.
Yeah. He left, and I remember one
And then
day.
Moravec took it.
No. One day you came to me and said, in addition to your other duties, you will be responsible for lightbox test fixtures now. So I sat over at one of those benches,
Yeah.
and that was my place. And I built lightbox test fixtures for a long time. And in the meantime, I was also running cables.
You know, that was the job I had before I started designing.
Is that right?
Building test
Yeah.
fixtures, yeah.
And then Ed Johnson, who was right outside your office, over by the coffee machine there,
Yeah.
he left or got promoted or something, and I took over his job. He did the work of modifying games for foreign market. Remember, he would redo the cables and everything. That was a big job. That was probably my most responsible job.
Yeah,
because
that was a big job.
that was, yeah.
I know,
Go ahead,
I
go
did
ahead
that for quite a while.
explain that, because people won't
Oh,
know.
okay. Well, like we would get an order for, say, France. We'd get an order for games to go to France. Well, it isn't just 240 volts and 50 cycles. There was a lot more. We had to change out the motor. The front door was different. Mostly the coin was different. The action of the coin was different. Our domestic games were 2 for a quarter. So you had 2 shoots, 2 for a quarter. Well, France wanted 1 shoot, and I forgot what it was, maybe 1 play for a coin. Well, that changed the circuitry. And we didn't do a one-size-fits-all cable. We would actually modify the cable. We would go into the run-ins, the cable run-ins, and change the wiring. So that cable would operate only in France.
And some games you had to add, if different countries, sometimes you had to put in 3 coins, 2 coins, 4 coins sometimes. And then you might have to put in 2 coins to get 3 plays, or put in 4 coins
Yeah.
and get 1 play, or
Sometimes
whatever.
you have
There's
to add
always a variation of number of coins and number of games.
So sometimes you have to add relays and run the wiring to the relays, and we would incorporate that in the run-ins so that when they ran them out in the shop, it was just like running a regular cable.
Yeah.
The most complicated game was Germany, and we did it because they bought so many games. We were we were beholden to Adix because whatever Adix wanted, he got, and there was our only 3-shoot game.
Him and Fejden.
Well, I think I have always assumed that Adix was above Fejden.
No.
In terms of what because
Fejden was number 1.
because it didn't Adix. Well, he was the one that wanted the ball back gate all the time, on the multiple player games.
Yeah, I think, but
that's why every multiplayer game has a ball back gate. 'Cause that's what,
Fejden had France and Italy
okay.
under his
Yeah.
control, and so he was a big distributor. But Adix too is
What was his first name?
who?
Adix.
Fejden?
No, Adix.
Adix,
Fejden was Shurin.
Søren
Right, yeah.
Fejden, I got a good story about Søren Fejden. I'll have to tell you something.
Okay. so Fejden did the Italian Anaballs. He would buy the Italian Anaballs.
He's the Italian
Yeah.
Anaball.
Okay.
Boy, and he did a job for us there. But we sold a lot of
We
games
did.
in
We sold
Italy.
a lot of games.
Yeah.
The American Anaballs had the most distinguishing feature of an American Anaball is it had the balls to play numbers along the bottom of the back glass, 1, 2 through 10, and it wasn't ball in play; it was ball to play. So you put in a coin, the thing would step up to 5, and every time a ball ran out, it would subtract. If you won a ball, it would step up. So you kept playing until it was on 1 and the ball ran out. That was the American Annaball. Italy had some very peculiar laws about pinball. They said that you were not allowed to step up a ball unit because that would be gambling or something like that. It would be an award that you could not give the player. So we added another unit that we called the light box advance unit. This is going to be hard to explain now. The ball count unit only went up to 5, and the numbers didn't show. They were in invisible figures, just like a flipper game. So you start the game off, and it goes up to 5. If you won a ball, this light box advance unit would step up, and someplace on the light box there was spots. There was 5 spots, 5 stars, or 5 puffs of cloud, or whatever. Balloons, whatever.
Yeah.
And one of those spots would light up. If you won another ball, another spot would light up. When the ball ran out, one of the spots was taken away.
But there were no numbers on these spots.
No numbers.
No numbers.
And the only time the ball count unit would step down would be if there were no spots. So you see, the ball count unit only stepped down. The light box advance unit could step up and step down.
Yeah.
And that made the game legal. Also, you could not say the word flipper. On the card holder, where it says flipper buttons at each side, we can only use the word buttons. Remember that? It just said the word buttons and then the 2 arrows. And that made the game legal. Oh, and also for Italian Annaball, there was another, even that was, I guess, illegal in some places in Italy. So there was a novelty setting. Remember, there was a novelty setting on the Italian Annaballs. You had to go inside and move the plugs. And on the back glass, there was an area, again, you couldn't tell what it was, 100,000 numbers. And there was no extra balls, no reward of any kind. But when you got, instead of an extra ball, it would give you 50,000 points. Remember the knocker? You get 5 knocks.
I don't recall that.
Yeah. And so your scores would be really high. You'd think it would be kind of a nothing, but it was really very exciting to play. You could get a score of, 400,000 or 500,000. Yeah, that was the novelty setting. And they played beautifully for us too, because we had a 50 hertz generator. Remember, powers that we could plug the game in. So, because the motor and the transformer were set for 50 cycles, and at 50 cycles, all the other coils in the game kicked harder, so it was a lot better action. Remember that? Yeah, they were a lot of fun to play.
They were great games.
Yeah, so
we did a lot of games for Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Were games to England any different? Did they require anything?
Just the front door.
Yeah, the number of plays per coin.
England. I think we ended at England 6, and I think it was a 2-shoot game. It was a Bob and Tanner, which would be a 6pence on the first shoot. The second shoot was a shilling. So it was probably 2 coins for 1 play, two 6pence for 1 play, 1 shilling for 1 play.
It was different than all the rest.
But again,
every country was different.
Yeah.
We had maybe 6, 7, 8 different versions of every game.
We had a Hong Kong, remember?
And that was almost a full-time job for one man.
Yeah, it was.
To get the run-in sheets all made up.
In addition, deletion sheets. Remember, delete the 60-cycle motor and add the 50-cycle motor, and
But it was all worth it because we sold a lot of foreign games.
Yeah. After working on that book, or along with working on the book, I was running cables, engineering sample cables. One time I had to run 3 games. That was 3 light boxes and 3 play fields and 3 bottom boards. My fingers just about fell off from lacing.
Were you using the run-in sheets?
Yeah, in engineering. And we had all the wires overhead, It was the lacing that killed you. The lacing.
The lacing was an art.
Yeah, it was an art, but it still just about pulled your fingers off.
Underhill was a #1 lacer.
Well, he didn't lace these cables. I did.
Yeah, but he was a lacer.
He was doing layout. He was doing my time. He was layout. He was our layout man. So he was doing that. And then, all the time too, Eddie would bring a game into the playing room, and we'd play it. And we'd decide that, we need to change this feature a little bit. And you'd say, you asked me to do it. So I would, move a target and do the wiring and mark up the schematic, do it right so it was documented. I did a lot of that. Added something. I said, this is a great game, Eddie, but it's a little dull over here. How about if we put a kick target or something here? And I ask you, and you say, yeah, go ahead and do it, and I would do it. So I did a lot of that, and playing the games. Remember, we had to play the games and write down the scores and see if we had a game, see where the score ranges were, and how many replays you're going to get.
And how long it took to play the game.
Yeah, that's right. We had to time them. Yeah,
important.
it was about what 3 minutes per. We figured.
Yeah,
for
about
a 5
3
ball?
minutes. About 3
Three,
minutes, a
three
little
and a
less,
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Now let's back up. So when you're saying the word Eddie, you're talking about Ed Krinsky.
Yes, Krinsky.
Okay, but you're the first person I've ever heard call him Eddie. So that's fine, but
Oh.
people are going to watch this and go, Eddie? Who's Eddie?
We always called him Eddie.
I don't know how. I don't think I call him Ed. I think I don't recall really. But
You've always said Ed. That's all you've
yeah,
ever said.
I think I always called him Ed. Yeah.
But you called him Eddie.
We always called him Eddie, as I recall. Yeah, and he was.
Back up a step. Let me back up and talk about how you met him and then got into doing what you said you were doing. Help revising games, you would call it, or proofing.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
but tell us that Ed Krinsky and Eddie are the same person.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
sorry, because I just know all the books and everything. I've never heard him called Eddie.
Yeah, well,
You know,
yeah.
But that's who he was to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Eddie was an amazing designer, and he was designing when I got there. He had his own design room in the back there, and he was on the quiet side. He liked to work alone, and you kind of had to earn his friendship. But we got along well, and I think he eventually learned to appreciate some of the things that I was doing. And
Well, that's very true. Ed never associated much with anybody.
yeah,
He was a loner.
he was a quiet one.
And he never liked to play pinball machines, which is a very odd. He didn't play.
Yeah, that's right.
He didn't play for amusement. In other words, he wouldn't walk in the showroom
Yeah,
and
yeah.
play a game.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Did
That's
he get along with Dave Gottlieb, or was he pretty off to the side?
Him and Dave were not close. No.
I
think he wasn't close to really to anybody terribly.
No, he
Eddie,
never close.
Yeah.
He wasn't close with anybody.
Yeah.
He was a loner. He came to work on time and did his
Mhm.
job and went home. And
He wasn't unfriendly once you got to know him.
No,
he was
wasn't unfriendly.
he was just quiet.
He was a quiet
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
And,
I'll
and a
never,
nice guy.
he was a nice guy.
You couldn't never expect to meet a nicer guy than Ed Krinsky.
I'll never forget when I got laid off, and I was packing all my stuff up. He actually came in and says, "They're letting the wrong people go." I'll never forget when he said that.
Well,
Yeah.
He was really a nice guy, and I always liked Eddie and Ed. Eddie,
Yeah,
I'll
see?
call him Eddie.
Yeah.
But
He could design.
Ed was nice. Yeah,
could
Well,
do
talk
that.
about some of the games that you worked on that he, in part of that.
Well, can't think of the names of it right now, but there was one game, a Mustang, or I can't remember because I'm going to screw this up for sure, where he had 5 drop targets across the middle of the playfield, every other target. It was a 10 bank, but he had 5 drop targets. And I remember thinking that it's too hard to get the ball past that. And so I suggested, let's take out the outside 2 targets. And you said, okay. So we did. That's the kind of change we would make. Things like that.
Did you work on El Dorado?
Yeah, I was there when that came out. Now, what I did, I don't remember, but I was there. I probably played it as an engineering sample.
Was part of your job in working with him then, since he didn't play him, that you were part
Yes.
of the crew to evaluate?
Yeah, and Wayne had to be careful about who he let play because some of the people there were excellent players. You didn't want someone who was going to win every time. You didn't want someone who was a crackerjack player, and you didn't want someone who didn't care, who didn't like to play at all. So I was sort of in between.
I try to pick an average.
Yeah. And we just stand there, and we had sheets that we would write down the score. There was 4 columns and then each column had 4 squares in it. So you write down the score, and maybe how far you got in the sequence. If it was a sequence game, did you get any specials? Well, we didn't record matches, but yeah, just the important data. And there was 100 games per sheet. And we had to play like 200 games, and then do it all again on 3-ball, and then do it all again if they made a change in the playfield.
Yep.
What
Sometimes
sort
it
of
went on
player
for several
were you,
weeks.
John?
I'd say average. I enjoyed it, but it was just a game. It was just for fun. Yeah. anyway, I was doing that for various duties around engineering, and finally Wayne came and said, we were playing one of Eddie's games, and it was really good. And Wayne says, "You think you could design a game that good?" And I said, "Well, I don't know about that." And he said, "Why don't you try designing something from scratch? Why don't you try laying out something?" And I really didn't have a place to work. I think I just laid it out on top of one of the other games or something. I really didn't have an office yet. And that game turned out to be Hit the Deck. Single player, playing card. Hit the Deck was my first game.
I don't remember that game, but I remember Blue Note.
Blue Note,
why
yeah.
I remember Blue Note, I don't know.
I never have
What was there about that game that would make me remember it?
a musical theme. Remember it had 8 targets up the side, do, re, mi. Oh, I know. That game, when I laid out that game, I think I had a place to work by then, because I could really seriously do some
leg.
leg.
That room.
Yeah.
Eventually I got you that room.
Yeah. I never have a theme for a game. I don't care what you call it, But this game, for some reason, I had music on my mind. For some reason, I don't know. I'm rebuilding a piano or something, So let's do a musical theme. It's going to be 8 something, a sequence of 8 because of the do, re, mi, And I wanted to sneak in a little gambling here into this game of some description. So there's three.
A typical designer.
I've got to get this.
A little
So there's
gambling
3 rollovers at the top. There's 3 rollovers at the top, and they're not mandatory. You don't have to go through them. And I had like a 5,000 hat above each one of them. And I had a button on the front of the cabinet, and you could press that button and pick one of those hats. In other words, you could call your shot. As soon as you shot the ball, the button disconnected. It was just on you shooting the ball, And so you could call your shot and get 5,000 points at the top of the play field. And then the rest of the game was
which is a good idea.
Yeah, but you said, no, the player's not going to want to handle the button. He's not going to want to press he's not going to use the feature. So, you said, no, we're not. The game's fine, but you got to just take that out.
Is that right?
That's probably why you remember it.
It sounds, well, I don't know what there was about it, but I remember that game.
And I never built a game with the double flippers. Where the 2 flippers where the ball could go out between the flippers. I always thought that was a really unfair burden for the player. I never did that.
He may ask a question, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Or what do it's very, very informal. We were not a formal company
That's
in any
right.
way,
That's
shape.
right. Judd might come in and play it for a while.
And Judd might even say something, or Elvin, or Smith.
Smith,
or,
yeah.
So now, he's talked about, he had his workshop and he had his drill press and all his stuff. Did you finally get a area like that so you could build from the white wood all?
Well, we had a common area. It was like a little machine room. Yeah, when I got a place where I could lay out a game, I had what I call my toy box, and I had like bumper bodies and rollover guides and things, and a million posts, so I could take a play field and lay the arch on it, lay the stick on it, and start actually laying things out. And I'd take a straight edge and see, here's the flipper, and now here's going to be the shot. When I get things the way I want them, I just put a pencil mark.
Did you have a drawing board in that room?
No, I did draft. Well,
how'd you draw circuits and things like that? Didn't we have to give you a drawing board?
I must have. Yeah, I must have had something, because that was where I learned to write with both hands, because
write with both hands.
Yes, because we had such rigid rules with wire colors, which we had to enforce. Like you didn't have the same color on a relay unless it was the same wire, and the motor and so on. So I would keep a record of the wires. As I draw the schematic and I'm assigning colors, and I'm writing, on the schematic with my left hand the color, and over here my check sheet. On relay A I've got a blue white. Okay.
Oh, you check that one off.
Well, so I could look and see when I came to relay A again, what colors can I use, and I could go through and say this wire has to go from the motor to relay A. Here's the colors I've already checked off on the motor. Here's the colors on relay A. What colors can I use? So I learned to write with both hands at the same time, because the schematic was so big. The thing was this wide when you do it by hand. So, yeah, I must have had something
Yeah,
to draw.
you had to have a drawing board.
Yeah,
to work on.
yeah.
Was there a reference sheet or something that showed each color combo to what feature that would always go to? You had that memorized, right? You knew that like the back of your hand.
We all did.
The color.
Yeah.
I mean,
the color code was the same, and a lot of the the normal circuit of that, which is on every game, was always the same colors and same,
Yeah.
everything was the same
Like the
as much as
So,
possible.
score
did you have some big printed
No.
sheet on your wall?
I just
No.
remembered it. I just, I was so into it, and I knew some of these colors before I even came to Gottlieb. There's
Run off the color code for them.
well, like black is common, blue, white, red is N relay, yellow, blue, red is M relay, green, white, red is L relay, red, white is power, red and white is playfield power. Certain things like that they're
And then
immutable.
what's the color code?
Blue, orange, brown, green, slate, yellow. That's the first series. They were always in sets of
blue,
6.
Then blue, white,
And then blue, white,
orange,
and then
white, brown, white,
brown,
green,
white.
white,
yellow, blue. The
yellow,
last
blue
color
instead
would
of
normally
slate
be
white.
yellow, white, but we never had yellow and white on the same wire because they fade. So that would be.
But there was definitely color code on every wire, and
it was like 90 colors or something. Well, there was a lot
yeah,
of colors.
we all had those colors all memorized. And,
Yeah.
And of course the repair people never knew that. They never understood that.
Yeah. But on the line, when they were inspecting, the plugs, the large connecting plugs, were always in order. So you could look, if you knew the code, you knew right away. They didn't necessarily use every wire, but they were always in order.
Yeah.
Up the left and then up the right. That was how they were ordered.
And so when you built this game from scratch, you wired it all up and made
In the electromechanical days, yeah, I would wire it completely I'd bring the playfield over to our wiring table, and here's my schematic, and you just start from the bottom. You just start with blue and run it. I'd put a bunch of cable clamps along the relay strip so it would hold the wires in place for a while, and actually solder it up just one wire at a time, and then lace it all up, and then take the wire clamps off, and then do the bottom board. We didn't have to do light boxes. We had common light boxes in the engineering department because all 2-player, all 4-player, all single players were the same.
All very similar.
Yeah, enough that
with modifications.
Yeah.
You modified a light box.
Yeah, but for this at this point you could use any light box.
When you're designing a multiple player game, you never used a light box. You wouldn't grab the light box off the junk pile and say, "Oh, this one looks like it'll work."
Yeah.
Set it up in your cabinet.
Yeah.
And wire into it.
Right.
So in the back of your game, there's wires hanging from bottom panel loose up into the light box.
John, did you invent any features or add something that maybe they didn't accept it, but did you come up with some ideas that were new?
Oh well, like that push button at the in Blue Note, of course, but that wasn't anything new. That was just a feature. I wanted to find some way to get the ball to roll under the playfield and come up. I tried that so many times I could never get it right, and you never bought it because it was probably too expensive or not practical or something, That didn't happen until Volcano came along, and that was in the solid state days. I finally figured out how to do it, and they did build the game. Let's see. Trying to think.
So the vertical up kicker hadn't really been
Oh,
developed,
okay.
right?
When Haunted House came along, Haunted House came along. I used that. That was just really a knocker coil that just kicked straight up. It kicked the ball up to that middle level. That was the Achilles heel in that game. Always was. Always will be. We came up with a solution by putting a local relay by that kicker, so there was no voltage drop in the transistors. We put a relay in there with the big tungsten points, and that seemed to help, But that roll down target, that was mine. In fact, I got an international patent on that. On the Haunted House, on the main level, there's 3 targets, and that middle target, when you hit it, the ball just rolls right past it.
That was after my time.
Yes, that was after your time.
After
Yes,
my time.
yeah.
That was too bad because that was. Everyone says that was a great game.
That was a great game, but I'll bet management was glad to see the back of that game though, because it really was it was a heavy, over-featured freak. I mean, it was a great game.
No, the company didn't make any money. Huh?
That's what I'm thinking. They probably, because I think that was probably the required more tooling than any other game that was not a new game type.
You never would have got a chance to build that game if Tony Gerard was the superintendent at the time. Because he watched the amount of material went into a game.
Oh, yeah.
And he knew every penny was in there. And he'd count relays and he'd count switches and
I didn't know him. That was before
You
my
didn't
time.
know
No, I
Tony.
never know
Oh,
Tony.
he was a
I
great-
remember counting wires. I'm speaking of that. One of my jobs was counting connections. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Oh yeah.
That was so they could, I guess,
One and then 1.5. wasn't
yeah,
it?
1.5, and then the two 18 gauges was
If
2.
two wires go together, you count 1.5.
Yeah, I think that was so they could figure out how many people they need to build a play field.
Yeah.
How much. Now I want to ask you this. That got your gauging for your population, your personnel out there. But what about bills of material? Whoever generated the bill of material for a game? I never saw anything like that.
You never saw it.
Well, I really didn't know anything about that at the time. I wasn't very experienced
sure.
in business at the time, but you know.
I think Moravec did a lot of that. I don't know. But we had a parts list.
Yeah.
Everything was listed before the
Okay.
game was ever released.
Uh-huh.
Because you had to know what was in it.
Sure.
And then they priced it, and they knew pretty well exactly what it was going to cost them to build that game.
Did you do that?
No, I didn't.
You didn't do that?
personally. No.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was done every game. Parts list.
Well, then I think the third one I did was Strange World. That's probably about the only my game I wouldn't mind having. I guess there are not too many of those around. All of my games were asymmetrical, you know, very oddly arranged. I wanted that. I wanted something.
I mean, on the other hand, never built an asymmetrical game.
I know. Usually Gottlieb didn't. I think Big Indian was one of the first ones that I remember seeing.
Krinsky liked it.
Yeah. Oh, you know that story, Big Indian. Remember that game?
Yeah.
Big Indian and Big Brave, the 2-player.
Yeah.
They were building that. It was in the final stages when I got there. It was in, I think the key plates were on the game in the engineering department. You know, we were in engineering sample stage, and the artwork had been done. And I'm looking at this thing. The original name of this game was Big Engine. And I'm looking at this thing. I thought, boy, I don't know how things are in the Midwest, but you can't really use that name. That is not a good word to use. And I didn't want to know what to say. I don't know if I should say something to you or to Smith or to Judd. And I remember I said something to Cliff Strain. Remember Cliff?
Cliff, sure.
Yeah. He was a good friend of mine because he lived close to us and we saw each other socially.
I know Cliff, yeah.
He always reminded me of Doodles Weaver, the way he looked. But anyway, Anyway, I mentioned it to him. I said, you can't put that word on a back glass anymore. And he says, well, okay. And sure enough, about a couple of days later, in comes a new key plate. Big Indian. They changed the name. You remember that?
I remember the name change, yeah, but I don't remember how it came about.
That's how it came about. Yeah. Politically correct even then. You know?
I guess.
Yeah.
But we got away with a lot. Today you would be sued. We would have lost.
Like Dragonette?
Oh, Dragonette
Yeah.
and there's so many of them that we use.
Yeah.
I can't think of any of the names now.
I think
but
the only reason you got away with Dragonette was because there was nobody on the back glass that looked like Jack Webb or Ben Alexander.
Guys' Dolls would be another example.
Oh, Guys and Dolls, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You couldn't use that today.
Yeah. I think pinball was just considered such small potatoes.
Yeah,
It wasn't worth.
Nobody paid any attention to
Nobody was going to bring a lawsuit. By the time they bring a lawsuit, the production run is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, keep going with your games.
Oh well. I can't really.
It's hard. It's hard to remember games.
It is. I remember Volcano. Volcano. That was the one that had the.
There has to be something that's outstanding on the game that brings it back to you.
Well, I like to think that all my games were outstanding.
Well, no, I mean some feature or some remark that somebody made to you about it. Or there's something about that game that was different.
Well, when we went to Solid State, of course, that changed everything.
Yeah.
The way the games were built. We still had to lay out the playfield in the same way, but now because these cables had Molex connectors on them now, we really couldn't do that. We couldn't handle that. So we have to run a cable now. Instead of wiring it by hand, we had to actually make our own layout and do our own run-ins. This is in engineering now, and then lace it up and then take this cable out into the shop where they would put the Molex terminals on. There's no more soldering. No soldering except the cable onto the actual components. And then we had to program. The thing. And I had about the same luck with programming that I had with wiring. I never had it so when I plugged the game in the first time, it worked. There was always something.
Oh,
yeah, there's
you-
always something. That,
Only once in one game that I built, one game that came out without an error,
Ah,
and that is
Remember which
it's
one it was?
remarkable.
remember which one it was?
No,
What?
I don't
Okay.
remember.
I tried and tried and tried,
Yeah.
especially
Oh, yeah,
in
you could
electromechanical days, man. Well, there's a jumper missing, or
And
yeah.
most times there's more than one thing. It's 3 or 4 things that
Yeah.
you goofed up on and
Did
forgot.
Did you work with the Rockwell guys?
no, no, that was Alan Edwall, a guy who was hired for the purpose of helping us transition to solid state, and he and I can't remember who else, Dave Schulte, a couple of guys, but mostly Alan.
Alan-
Went out to Rockwell and Tom DeFotis.
Tom
Remember Tom
DeFotis.
DeFotis? Yeah, yeah.
Well, so your role when they went to solid state, what was your were you still doing the playboard design?
Yeah, just keep designing. Yeah, only indifferently. The early solid state system had no memory, as I recall. It had no memory, so we couldn't do.
Didn't have much anyway.
It didn't have much,
We
and
didn't have
we
much.
couldn't. It wouldn't remember from ball to ball. Every ball was a fresh start, like a electromechanical multiple player. And later on, we got the System 80, which had like twice the memory and twice the number of flags and registers that we could do. And it was interesting programming. You could do some interesting things. You know, I remember most of the commands. It was a 16 command set. You know, going from 0 to F, and you know, there was the stop and the copy and the score and the set and all those things. You could do a lot of interesting things.
I retired in 80, but I was
Yeah.
a consultant until 83.
Yeah.
So I came back
Yeah.
periodically and
From here?
kibitz a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah, you'd moved here.
I go back and kibitz.
Well, go ahead and start at the beginning. How on earth you got the name, the idea for Haunted House and the 3, if you don't mind, to tell us about that game, because I've not seen any real details.
Well, one day Gil called me and John Burris into, I guess, Eddie's office. I think Eddie was still. I think Eddie and John were sharing that office or something. And he said, oh wait a minute, I need to back up. We had gotten a Bally game called Xenon. And what they had done, they had dropped the playfield slightly, and they had a plastic tube that ran across the playfield. Ball would kick up into the tube and come down. Big deal, big deal. But I guess that was making a lot of noise in the field. People really wanted that, and Gil thought we need something like that. So he called us into Eddie's office and said, we need to make something and he said to John Burris, he said, you build a 2-level game. And he said to me, you build a 3-level game, which was, of course, perfect. He said, you can do anything you want, but we have to be able to get it into our regular cabinet. So, no new cabinets. And that's how I started. And I knew one level was going to be above, one level was going to be below. It just seemed intuitive. The lower level, I thought, would be much better served if it sloped away from the player. You could see more of it. So,
What was Gil's job at that time?
he was like Smith. I think he was like the production manager. I think he was, Bob Smith's job
Because
by then.
the company was being run by
Boyd Brown. Was
Brown.
that Boyd? No, Bloom.
Bloom.
Which one came first? I can't remember.
Bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's always on a trip. Yeah. What do we call it? He went on
Bloomdoggle.
Bloomdoggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bloomdoggle.
Yeah.
Oh, he was in charge at that time.
Yeah. He was
Well,
in
and
Judd's
then-
position.
Yeah.
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 And then Dick Finger was in your position.
Dick Finger was
Yeah.
in my position.
He didn't stay too terribly long.
No.
But these people, like Dick, he was, a nice guy, sincere, willing to learn, but he hadn't been in the industry. It was strange to have these people directing us that really had no background in pinball.
This was Columbia Pictures, right?
Well, Columbia Pictures had taken over by that time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then
they,
that was
they
a-
hired all these people.
I believe so. Yeah, because didn't Judd resign then when
Judd,
Columbia
Judd
came in?
left,
Yeah.
Judd and I left on the same day.
Did you really?
Yeah. We walked out the front door together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we had that little party for him over at the hotel. at that
And
time.
we stood out in the parking lot and talked for a while.
Well, John,
Yeah.
we'll get back to that, but this is interesting. So there you are with the famous Gottlieb company, and yet the people that hired you and the historical part of the company suddenly was changed.
Well,
What,
yeah.
what did it feel like working there with, you know.
Well,
these-
it was really about the same in terms of design freedom because I never was fettered much, anyway. A lot of the stuff I designed never got built just because Eddie had something better at the moment, That just the nature of the design. You design a lot of things that just don't get made.
Who else was designing at the same time?
Alan was designing some games. I think he did the Pink Panther game. And, my design,
Who?
Alan Edwall. Yeah, he did a game
Oh.
or two. Yeah. My theory of design, I think it mirrored yours, was that if you have a very complicated play field, it has to be real easy to understand. If you're going to have a real complicated game, play field has to be easy to understand, as in a bingo. Haunted house, very complicated play field. The rules were easy to understand. You could see what was going on in the middle, the upper, and the lower play field. By the time that game came along, at that time the idea, somehow the philosophy took hold that the person who designs the game should not be the one who programs it. Which
Why?
They felt that somebody else taking the game at that point would give it a fresh look, And so by the time they finished programming that haunted house, to this day I don't understand how that game works. I just felt they had just designed all the charm out of it. It was way too complicated.
Who came up with the theme?
Rich Tracy. All right, by that time we had an in-house art director. And remember Rich, you were there? No, he looked a little like John McEnroe, the tennis player. Yeah, he was a good guy, and he
Was he an artist?
yeah. Oh yeah, he was a major artist, and he did all our artwork. He did Haunted House, he did Grab It, he did all the games from that era.
Stenholm was the artist after Parker.
Right.
Okay.
And then Stenholm didn't do too well, and he was a problem. He took offense when we picked on his drawings, and he would hurt. He'd get.
I didn't like criticism. Well, I did goof pretty bad when I laid out Haunted House because I needed more playfield room. So I put the arch in a slightly different place. And I built it all up. It was built, the tubes that took the ball from the middle level to the lower level, and from the lower level to the top level, was stuff from the hardware store, just plumbing pipe. That was a kludge. I just had to get it together, put stuff together, And it worked, and then Gil saw it and said, all right, we're going to build it. But when they took it apart, and I think Frank was still with us. I'm not sure about that. No, it couldn't have been Frank.
No, Frank.
Maybe it was.
Frank left before I did.
Yeah, because he had that heart attack, and
Yeah.
what was that guy's name? That Johnson. His name was Johnson. Ed Johnson. Ed Johnson. He was doing layout, and when he took that thing apart, I got in trouble for that because I had moved these things that were unchangeable. Like the location of the arch, the location of the various reference holes and stuff. I had changed that stuff. So he said, so he had to lay it out again. He had to lay out the top portion of that playfield to make it fit the standard, And it took him a couple of days. So I kind of got in trouble for that.
Do you think it played better the way you designed
No difference. No difference. Now, at the top of the playfield, there's three holes, one that goes to each level. And I put a post in between each one that had a light in it. These were those old, they look like baby bottle nipples. It was a post with a flange underneath. You could put a light in it. Remember those?
Sure.
I had that in my treasure box, And I thought, I'm going to put these in. There's no way this is going to get made because it wouldn't matter if they put a regular post there. So I put that thing in, and of course they look beautiful up there. And sure enough, they redesigned that, and there's a light in those posts up there. I can't believe they did that because that was a new item. That means a new cavity, a new plastic post cavity, But they did that, and I thought the game was a rousing success. As I say, I think it was very popular in the field until they had to start to fix it. Then they started to realize that in order to get to the bottom board, you got to take out the lower play field. Operators weren't real happy with that. It was a tough game to work on. Yeah.
But it was popular with the people.
It was a popular game.
Players loved it.
Especially that roll down target. That's the thing I really liked about that because it gave that surprise that you want in a game. the player is playing and the ball is going so fast, and all of a sudden you hit that target and the ball just vanishes. It literally vanishes before you realize it's down here. It was a really nice surprise. Yeah.
Did you have anything to do with the music?
No, I didn't even have a theme. I did not have a theme. They were going to, I had built a game before that with kick holes at the top. I used the gang kicker. Remember, like Sing Along? The gang kicker that would,
Yeah.
I put 4 holes at the top at a slight incline and a post between each one. That was my bingo. See, I had a little reference to bingo there. And then the last hole would come down and there'd be a flipper right there. And flip it across and there was a drop target bang. I don't remember the rest of the game.
Who named it then?
Well, they were going to take this game. The idea is every time you get in a hole, it would toggle on or off. And if you had all the holes lit and you got all the way through, it would give you a special. That was how you got the special. And they liked that game. I called it Wild Lemon because I had the playfield painted yellow.
Well,
Just as a name, you know. And they were going to take that game and they were going to call that Haunted House. That was going to be Haunted House.
Who actually picked the name Haunted House?
Probably Rich Tracy. I don't know who picked the games. In our years, in your years, who picked the games?
Well, I did most of the time, but
Did you?
But Dave would also help out.
Yeah.
Of course, if he wanted to change it, he changed it.
Sure. I thought it just came from the artist. I thought, Larry or...
No, not generally, no.
Okay. And somehow that game didn't get built. I don't remember why, but in the meantime, I started on this 3-level game, and they just moved the name over to that one. I had nothing to do with the sound effects or anything. Yeah.
And with your plumbing parts and everything, you actually built a fully functional 3-level haunted house.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You built the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Programmed it. And, yeah, it was a playable game. That was called the hand sample. That was the one that was built by hand, and all the things that the various scores and stuff were just written on the playfield with a magic marker. 500 points, an arrow or something like that. And then once it was accepted, and this is true with all games, once it's accepted, they do a formal layout, and usually Moravec starts a formal schematic, and then they build a what we call an engineering sample. That was built sort of to test the tooling and to test the schematic. And that was as close to the real thing. There was still no artwork, but that had a hard-coded playfield. That was the real thing. That's what we would play for percentaging the game, to see where the replay scores would be. And then the next step after that was a production sample, which was
do
finished
you
game.
remember anybody commenting, or did that set a new price point? Did they have to?
I didn't know about that. No, I still don't know about that. I still don't know how, whether that game was really considered profitable or not. Ultimately, I don't know. Given all the new tooling,
It was expensive to build.
a boatload of new tooling in that game.
So the selling price had to have gone up on that game.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
What did you design after that?
I don't remember. I tried a couple of things. There was a thing called a variable flipper that I tried. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't think you're going to be able to see this. Real carefully on that. Maybe, if there's enough light. Let's see, here's the flipper in this slot.
Yeah.
And here's a
flipper.
handle. Here's a handle. You turn the handle and the flipper would move back and forth.
Oh, my
And there was a
goodness.
button up here you'd press and it would flip. Okay? Now there was flippers up
Yeah.
here, and both of these flippers were operated by either flipper button. So you'd have one hand on this trigger and one hand on one side of the
You
cabinet.
only had one button then.
Well, both flippers, no, this flipper was on the handle.
Oh.
But see, there's a flipper here, and I think there's another
And
flipper
where
over here.
did you have 2 flipper buttons?
Yeah, they were both wired together to flip
Oh.
both of these flippers. So you had one hand here and one hand on either side to operate these flippers. So you'd swing this thing back and forth and you'd flip by pressing the button. See?
And where did didn't the glass come down into this molding? And how did
I forget what they were going to plan for that. I forgot what they were going to do. They couldn't relieve the glass. I don't know what they were. I forgot. They may have had a short glass. Of course, it was never made. Never got built.
Well, a lot of things didn't get built.
Yeah.
Tell us about meeting your wife and how that happened.
Oh yes. Well, I got to be good friends with one of the maintenance men, Ray Aarons. Remember Ray?
Yeah.
And he was about my age. And he said one time, "You want to go on a blind date?" my girlfriend's got this girlfriend, and you want to go out on a date? I said, sure, why not? So he set it all up, and we went out to Oliver's or something like that, on Lake Street. And
Did you know she worked in the plant?
she didn't work there.
Oh, she didn't work there.
No. Coincidentally, she started the next day. We went out on a Saturday night or something. She started Monday. I did not know. I didn't know at the time.
And neither one knew. Amazing.
Yeah. She worked for Gus. For Gus
No
Bredos.
kidding.
Yeah, I guess that was like parts, wasn't it? What did Gus do?
Well, Gus eventually was the chief. He was in charge of the whole factory.
Gus Bredos?
Yeah.
But at that time, wasn't he like? Didn't he
at
handle
that
parts or
time.
inventory or something? Because he had his own office. He had an office near
Yeah,
Lola's
an
office.
right
near
in the
Lola's
front,
office. Yeah.
right near the offices.
I thought it was in the back. No.
No. I don't know.
Anyway, she worked for him, and in fact, Gus asked me one time, "Don't keep coming back and bothering her." When you yeah. So we started going out, and it was a pinball romance. Yeah.
I used
How
to
long
kid all
did
the
you-
girls out in the shop too. Go. Funny. I took one out for a while.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
Well, we were married in '82, so I guess we met about 80 or so.
Couple years.
Yeah, a couple of years. Yeah. She lived right near the plant, just literally across the street.
That was after I had
It
left.
was right
by the
around
time.
that time that you had left. So around 80.
Yeah, it had to be after 80 when you got married.
Yeah, it was 80,
81?
82 we got married.
82 you got
Yeah,
married.
yeah.
John, when you started work there, I guess you were in an apartment somewhere. But
Mhm.
did you eventually become a house owner?
Oh
in
yes,
Chicago?
yeah. I bought a house eventually in Lombard. Yeah.
How far from work were you?
6 miles. 6 miles door to door. And because once in a while, a couple of times I tried walking to work just to do it. And I did that. A couple of times I would ride my bicycle to work on the bike path, the interurban
Yeah, sure.
path. Yeah. So that's how I knew it was 6 miles. That's not far. It wasn't far, except when it was snowing.
I was about a mile away.
Yeah, you were
I walked
close.
to work once in a while.
Did you? Yeah, you were very close, right in Elmhurst. Yeah.
And how did a California boy take to living in Chicago?
Oh man. I'm telling you, it's another planet. Believe me, Chicago is not L.A. with snow. It is another place. And of course, at a different time, being my age, not having seen a lot of this sort of thing.
But he really wasn't in Chicago. He was in the suburbs.
A minor distinction.
Well, I tell you didn't have the traffic jam coming out of the city
Well,
that we had
that's
when
true.
we were on Coster Avenue and,
Yeah.
and Paulina Street.
I saw my share of traffic in L.A., obviously. For a
Oh.
while, I worked for Portal. Remember Bob Portal?
Sure.
Bob Portal Distributing. I laid out of school for a semester, and I worked for him. And that was downtown. That was, sort of
When
downtown.
you were in school?
Yeah. I stayed out of school from Fresno for a semester to work for him. And I learned a lot. I met a lot of nice people. And, I remember I would talk to Bob when he would come back for the AMOA show. He'd be in the lunchroom, and I'd, come in and say hi to him. And, yeah.
You never went to an AMO show, did you?
Sure. Remember when we started with Cleopatra? That was the first time any of us had been to an AMOA show because we backed out because of the gambling business. Remember, Dave?
In the early days, they were really something, those shows.
That was when they were just MOA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you involved in the design of Cleopatra?
The only thing I did in Cleopatra, as I remember, there is a bonus hat or some kind of hat in the middle that is half. There's a light on each half of the hat. And I think I suggested that. Something, just to goose it up a little. But no, I think that was probably Eddie's game. That's the reason he would be given the task of designing the first solid state game because it was such an important game. He would have that job. Yeah.
Can you tell us some more about working with Ed or Eddie and were you associated with a lot of the games then towards that was because he retired. When did he retire, Wayne?
Who?
Ed Krinsky.
He never did retire.
No, he was there when I was laid off in
Yeah.
'84.
He was laid off with the rest of them
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
when they.
Yeah.
So.
at the end
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
when
he
they
was,
closed the place
he was
up.
there to the end. Like Doc, Doc was there to the end too.
Doc was there to the end
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah.
And poor Doc died shortly thereafter.
Well, he couldn't have been in very good health.
No, he
His-
wasn't.
yeah, no.
Did you work with Doc quite a bit?
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, the Doc and Bob Malvasio and Clem, they were drafters / designers, and they were in a separate room. They were in engineering, but it was a wall with windows and a door, and that was a separate room. So they didn't hear all our noise.
What was the girl's name that was in the drafting department?
Oh, there was a Jackie Jurek. I'm not sure if that was her. Geez, I don't know. At that time,
You remember her?
while you were there.
When I was there, I hired a girl and brought her into the drafting department.
No,
In fact, I took her out of the shop and moved her in there.
boy, I don't remember that. Somebody tells me I'm gonna have to add that name to the master list.
Yeah,
What's her name?
uh,
You're gonna have to think
can't
of it.
think of it. It may come to me.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of girly pictures hanging on the wall.
Pinups.
Risque.
Yeah, pinup pictures like.
Risque,
Yeah.
and the government would get in after Judd to have women in all the different departments and so on. And so Judd would come to me and say, "Get a girl in that in engineering, get her do something." And I wouldn't do anything. Only a couple of months go by, and he gave me another order to do it, and I didn't do it. Finally, he said, "I'm giving you a direct order, Wayne. You get a girl in there tomorrow." And I said, "Oh, come on, Judd. What? I don't want no girl in there." "Yes, you are." So I went out in the shop and picked one out, and asked her if she'd like to learn something, and she, "Yeah, sure." So, I had known her. I'd talked to her. So I brought her in, and she started running blueprints. And
Did she sit in that room?
yeah,
I didn't think it was
she had
any
a
more.
desk in there.
Did she?
Yeah.
Boy, I don't remember that. I'd like to get her name.
She ran blueprints and filed and
Mm-hmm.
did clerical work, and then
Yeah.
she had I think she might have eventually had a drawing board. I don't know, but Doc worked with her and real well. They got along well together. And I thought they'd fight the girl, but they didn't fight her.
They were all so old.
But she was the
school.
only girl in the whole whole design room.
Yeah, they were so old school, all those people.
But she was still there when you were there, and right to the end of it.
I do remember when we moved over into the back of the shop. When the whole engineering department moved.
Oh.
After there was a woman there that was running prints. Maybe I wonder if that was her.
Why did you move the engineering room?
Columbia or Coke or somebody wanted it to have. I think they wanted to have that engineering department for offices.
Oh.
And the whole thing moved to the back, and we had a side entrance. It was pretty nice. They did a good job. They walled it in, and the central area had drafting boards, and all around the edge were offices. That's where my office was. I was right across the street from Eddie.
Huh.
And then there was a playing room, and then
No, I never
Craig's
knew that.
office, and yeah.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah.
I never knew you moved out of there.
But by that time, the company was starting to go down.
I don't think they ever modified that front office, did they?
Well, it became offices.
Did
The
they?
engineering department became all offices.
Because you know why I say that. One day, I'm not sure who it was. I think it might have been our friend from Australia. I know, but somebody wanted to go down and see the plant, and we went down there. Yeah, it was Michael, and he went in the office and asked him if we could come in and look around the engineering area where that end of the building, and he got us in there, and there was nothing in there. It was just like it used to be years ago. The offices were pretty much the same, and I said, "Well, this is where my office used to be," and
It was an empty room when you were there? then?
empty, completely.
They must have changed it because I remember going up there, had to get a
And
report
there
or
was something
something,
going
and
on in
walked,
there?
and then there was just desks, all desks and cubicles in that room. That's all it was. And that's when I knew things were bad because you had you had more administration than you had workers.
Yeah.
You know, the plant was practically empty. You had all these people in the front office. That's not a good sign.
No.
You know, yeah.
But you know they tore that building down?
No,
It's down. It's gone.
it's such a nice building.
Gone, and it's been replaced with another building.
How about that?
Yep.
Oh, oh,
Well, you know what was wrong with that building? It was built in sections.
oh.
And first the punch press department, then the tooling department, and then this, and then that, and this. And then finally the front offices were made. And these were all separate buildings. And whoever bought the building, or bought the area, whatever, they wanted the area, but they didn't want the building. So they tore it down, put up a new building. And what a shame.
That was a big. That
The
was a
old
big
building-
building.
The building on Coster Avenue, that's still there.
And that's probably half the size. Right?
Half of it's, yeah, or maybe a quarter of the size.
That North Lake, that was a big. We had almost 1,000 people there at one time, didn't we?
I think we had more than
That was
that.
a huge.
Heavens, we were building almost 1,400 games there.
Just remember the huge cable department, and then we had our own punch press department, and John Romano's tool room, and that was a gigantic facility. Yeah, yeah. Oh, one thing I would say about you were saying about filing, you know, in the drafting department. I get people. You probably get this too. People asking me, "What is the prefix on the part numbers?"
Oh.
Yeah.
The A, the B, and the C.
Yeah, it's the drawing
Oh,
size. That's
size,
yeah,
drawing,
yeah,
paper
the
size.
paper size. Yeah, people don't know that. Of course, people don't know drafting.
Yeah,
don't
well.
don't know that. Yeah, so that's a
You know,
a
that's
mystery
so
of the
obvious.
ages.
It's so obvious you wouldn't even think to ask the question.
Well, that's because we're engineering.
Yeah.
You know.
No.
Yeah. I had a teletype system at my home. It just as a hobby. I used to be a ham operator, but I was kind of out of it by this time. And I had a friend that had a teletype, and I just bought it from him. It was the Model 19 table, a Model 15 printer and keyboard, a perforator, a tape reader, and I made all the hookups and everything. It was just for fun.
Wait, now when was this thing
This
made?
would be in the late '60s. I was in junior college.
Is that when it was made?
No, this is all war surplus.
They,
That-
they
this
didn't
is
make,
all-
they didn't make teletypes.
Yeah, no, that was the only thing you could get. That was the only thing. 60 word per minute equipment was pretty obsolete by then, but that was the only thing the FCC would allow a ham operator to transmit. Well, I never transmitted. I only received. And as I say, it was just for fun. I loved the mechanics of it. It was really a clever invention, the way that thing worked. It was just really, somebody really put a lot of thought into making that thing work. And I had the standard Army layout, the Army system, but I used it to write letters. I'd actually write letters. Sometimes when I'd write a letter, I'd perforate a tape while I was typing, so I could play it again if I wanted to, And I would write Wayne. When I would write Wayne a letter, I'd write it on the teletypes, all capital letters. That's really the only distinguishing feature about it. If you just look at it, it's in all cap letters. Well, the funny thing is when we got together and he said, I knew you were writing on a teletype because you had teletype in the service.
I was a teletype repairman.
There, see?
And I almost went into teletype after the war.
Did you?
But, well, it's a long story. You don't want to hear it, do you? How
Of
I got
course.
to it.
I remember when you got a shock on your ear that time.
Pardon?
You got a shock on your ear that
Oh,
time.
yeah, but that had nothing to do with
I
teletype.
thought that was a teletype system.
No, that was a transmitter. But I was in the Army, and I was trying to write down messages off the, can't think of the word.
Like a Morse code? Or?
Morse code.
Oh,
And
okay.
I have to write it down.
Yeah.
And I couldn't write fast enough, and so I had to go to take typing school.
Ah.
And this is in the Army, and so I took typing, and I got up to, 20 words a minute or something, and that was my max. I couldn't get over that. My fingers weren't made for that.
Yeah.
So they threw me out of that class and into a teletype repair. Well, a teletype machine is exactly like a pinball machine. There's no difference between the two. There are relays and coils and solenoids and transformers. It's a pinball machine.
Electromechanical device. Yeah.
It's a pinball machine.
Yeah.
Anyway, I took the class, and I was the top one in the class, and the instructor says, Wayne, I I'm going to put something in that machine that you cannot find. And I go, come on, there's nothing you can put into that machine that I can't repair. And so he put in, there were 5 code bars.
Yeah.
And he took the center code bar out and reversed
it. Oh no, yeah.
And all I had to do was hit one key. I knew there was something wrong with those code bars. And of course, once I knew that, you look at them, you could see one was reversed. And I had it fixed within a minute, and he oh God. So I was set to graduate from the school, and if I had graduated and then went on and did nothing but teletype repair for the whole war, I would have went to Western Electric and in their teletype program.
Or the teletype company even after the war.
They made all the teletypes.
Yeah.
And so I knew that's what I would do. I wouldn't go back and make pinball machines because I wasn't a designer at the time. I was just a flunky working under Smith and Mabs,
Yeah.
So my future was questionable in the pin game business, and I was going to go into teletype repair. Well, then, right at that time, one night I'm in the barracks and a gang of us guys sitting around talking, and one guy just flunked out of OCS, Officer Training School, and we kind of kidded him a little bit about how can you flunk out of the school like that. And he says to me, "I'd like to see you do it. Or you couldn't get through OCS either." I said, if I want to do it, I can do it. I'll do anything I want to do. I can do it. And he said, "All right, why don't you go do it?" I go, "Okay." And next morning I went over and signed up for OCS. As I went into OCS, graduated, became an officer. The worst mistake I ever made in my life.
Why?
Being an officer was the worst thing that happened to me. I was better off as a enlisted man.
Didn't you get more pay?
Oh yeah, I got more pay, but that had nothing to do with it. I was unhappy. And things happened to me immediately after I became an officer, and I didn't like officers, and I still don't like officers. What do I get? I get a son-in-law that's an officer, and, and a couple other officers. They're all military, but that's all right. But I love teletype, and I still remember a lot. In fact, I had a lot of the teletype books.
Oh,
I gave them to Elvin. Remember Elvin had a teletype?
No, I don't remember that.
Elvin had a teletype.
I had some of those books.
He had the M15.
Well, so you knew the code, you knew the tape.
Oh, sure.
Because I learned to read tape because it was like a miniature piano roll in a sense.
I knew that teletype. That I just took to that thing just like because it's a pinball machine.
Well, okay, fine, but we had teletype in the front office. Remember, we had 5-level teletype, and I remember telling the girls one time, I said, I can read that tape. And they didn't believe me. And I said, tear off a piece of that tape, and I'll come back with what it is. And they gave me a piece, and I took it back to engineering, and I worked on it, looked at A, B, C, and so on, and wrote it down. And I took it back to him and said, run this tape and see this is what it should say. That
we had it in the office.
Yeah, we had a teletype.
Teletype?
By Rochelle.
Well, nobody used teletype at that time.
Well, I guess
in
they
the
were.
80s?
Well, no, 70s.
In the 70s.
Yeah. The Twixes and that sort of thing.
I wonder if that was Elvin's teletype.
Well, it wasn't in his office anyway, Anyway, she ran the tape through, and it was a bunch of numbers and text and numbers. I made one mistake. I missed it by one digit.
See, they went out so fast after the war that
but it was fun. It was a very interesting mechanism.
It was a great machine at that time. And it was subject to a lot of troubles, and it was not
a lot of fast-moving parts, that would wear out.
I love that teletype machine. I like that. It was like a baby, just like a pinball machine to me. I put my arms around it. I loved it.
We always had hope. They kept telling us to just keep designing, and then things were the factory was starting to empty out. There weren't so many people there now. I remember they used the cable department for storage of games one time. And, Cliff's department, Cliff Lynch, remember? His cable department,
Sure.
And, but they just kept telling us, keep going. We're there's still a market out there. And then one day they said, everybody into the lunchroom, the new lunchroom. They got the whole plant. At that time, they could get the whole plant into the one lunchroom.
The lunchroom back in the
The
middle
new
of the
one,
plant?
yeah, the new one, yeah, in the back, yeah.
And how many people would you say?
No, I'm
that
sorry,
was?
that was the old lunchroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one in the back anyway, by the
Yeah,
step,
okay.
yeah.
How many people would that have been?
Oh, I don't know. I just
200?
yeah, maybe 100 or so, you know.
Oh, pretty
But
small.
Pretty small. And we're thinking, this is it. This is it. And Bob Bloom gets up, I'm pretty sure it was Bloom, and gets up and says, we're poised for a great future. We're on our way up, and we have so much confidence that we're renaming the company. It's not going to be called Gottlieb, it's going to be called Milestar. And they gave us T-shirts. They gave us Milestar T-shirts, and told us that onward and upward, and because that's the star suffix was something that Columbia Pictures used. They had Rastar for Ray Stark, and there was a few others that used that star thing at the end. And of course, Eddie, I'm pretty sure it was Eddie. The first thing he says, "Well, it looks more like Milestar, as in millstone." That's what we took it to be.
That sounds like
yeah.
That's it, yeah.
And of course, as a historian, I realized that game company changes its name, that's the kiss of death.
Yeah.
It's never survived. It's just, I don't know, just one of those cosmic things. So we all went back to work, and I think I still have that Milestar. No, I sold the Milestar T-shirt. I sold it on eBay a couple of years ago. And, but you could just tell the stuff just wasn't going out the door. And we got a vending machine. So somebody sent us a can vendor one time, and they said they wanted us to think about putting a ticket dispenser in it, a coupon dispenser in it. So, well, okay, I can start on that, and then some, no, wait, hold off, and that thing was there for about 6 months, and then it disappeared. And management just seemed unfocused. They were just aimless, and they never came back and really talked to us. They never told us what they wanted. That's when I did that variable flipper during that era, and just there was nobody to look at it.
Was Bloom there until the very end?
Who came after Bloom? No, there was somebody out. Boyd Brown. Boyd Brown came in, and he was from Coke, I think. He was a nice guy. In fact, he had hinted that he might want an old game. I started kind of thinking about finding a game for him, and then I got laid off. My understanding was that the main reason we made 2 players is for the 4-player market, it was too cheap to buy a 4-player.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it didn't make any difference as far as the money in the cash box was concerned.
Right.
You're better off to buy the 2-player game and.
Yeah, but it was the same game. Just 2 players less. Yeah.
Okay.
About the company going down. The guy that had taken over engineering was a guy named Al Gabrius. I don't think you ever knew him. He was kind of a big guy, and he didn't really have much pinball experience. He was okay. We didn't get along all that well, and we were trying. I made a skee ball game in a cabinet. I thought that was going to get built. I built a baseball game, a real baseball game with a pitching unit. It had a small ball. A solenoid-driven pitching unit in a pinball cabinet. The holes along the back.
Like the old Western baseball?
Yes, like the Williams baseball games.
More like the Williams baseball.
And boy, they played that game until it was black, that play field. They just, everybody in the engineering just played the heck out of that game. Thought that was going to get made. Never got made. I still had the pitching unit from it. You sit inside and, it was a pretty good game. It was a pretty good game, but it was a very expensive game. And I don't know. It would almost take like a forensic accountant to see whether that game was profitable or not. It's really the same way with Haunted House. You don't know. I think that the sad truth is that the public was just turning away from pinball. It was just pinball. Just like I say, you sat inside the cabinet. The cabinet must have cost a fortune. A cabinet where you sit inside of it like that. And they built that in Bensonville. They stored it in Northlake, but they built it in Bensonville.
They actually produced it.
Oh yeah. Oh, it did quite well, or at least for what it was. They sold a lot of that. That was
So
very
you
hot
can't
at the
recall
time.
the very last pinball game that you were involved in? Before they...
No, I really don't. I don't, because nothing was getting made. It seemed like.
Were you all concerned then that you knew games you had done just weren't selling well? They just weren't being that popular?
I'm not sure if I really saw it that way. I could just see that games were not being sold. I didn't really think of the overall, social reason, the fact that the public was just moving on to other things. It seemed like video was taking pinball money, but that probably wasn't really the case. I don't think the videos were doing much better. I don't think my theory is video did not displace pinball. That's not. They both died pretty much at the same time.
But were you aware, Wayne's talked about he didn't pay really any attention to what Bally and Williams and Chicago Coin. Were you aware of what the competition was cranking out at the time?
Not so much, because once our engineering department moved, we stopped getting in the competitors' game. Remember, we were always getting Bally and Williams games in to look at them. Usually to do a good deal of running them down, but at least we got to see what they were doing. And I don't know, their quality didn't look all that great either. It just wasn't the same stuff.
Yeah, well, get your toys out there.
Oh yes. I was showing these two items to Wayne,
All
and
right.
you don't remember
I don't.
what that
I don't
is.
recognize these at all.
Well, I'm pretty sure.
This is after my time, I guess.
No.
Or before.
Well, during.
During.
Yes, but you
No,
weren't.
no,
I
that's-
don't- but you weren't there for that. I think. I don't think you were there for that. You were in the service.
Oh, these are parts the company made
Yes.
during the war.
Parachute parts.
Oh, for heaven's
For
sake!
they made for
These
the.
were in that cabinet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sake! I can't believe it.
That stuff
And
was
how
just
did
going to
you
get.
get these?
Well, you don't think the cabinet was locked, do you? Well, I knew. I knew. I could see this stuff. This stuff was just going to go in the trash. Nobody was going to save this stuff. And I thought, just
A
Just
parachute.
take it forever.
That's a part for a parachute.
yeah. Probably that too, huh?
This I don't know what.
You were
that
right
is.
about the webbing on the roller, probably. Some sort of a
Well,
harness.
I'll be darned. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
I couldn't let that stuff go. That's a major
There
part of the
there
company.
must have been 100 pieces in there in
I
that
don't know
cabinet.
about that many, but there was.
There were a lot of
there was
pieces,
a lot of small
different
parts.
things that we made.
Yeah.
That they punched them out. And our main business during the war was making tooling. They make tools for other companies.
Oh, really? I thought we made just the parachute harness.
Well, that was part of it.
Uh-huh.
That was the punch press did that, but the tooling, we did a lot of tooling, making the tools for other companies to punch out parts and things.
Okay.
So we had a very good tool room. We had a good
Yeah.
good man in there that ran that tool room.
Yeah.
Joe, what was his name? I can't think
This
of
was
his
before
name.
John Romano?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, before John Romano.
What about electrical components during the war? Do they make electrical?
No,
No.
no, just punch press and tools.
They wanted companies with fabricating ability. If you didn't have the punch press department, you probably would have made something electrical. They probably would have
Probably would
promoted you,
have,
but
because we were, we had people that could do that, but
yeah, they
Well,
wanted they
actually,
were looking for punch press facilities and
everybody had left. And,
Yeah,
Bob Smith stayed. I think he was the only one that stayed during the whole war.
mm-hmm.
Now, was David Gottlieb around at all when you started there?
I just missed meeting him.
Oh, you
As
missed
we were talking about this last night. He was old. By the time I came along, he was old. He'd retired in Florida, and apparently he would come back to the company once in a while just to visit and to putter around. But I guess he was in bad health. And I interviewed at the company in May of '72, and apparently he had just been there, like the week before. And about 6 months after I started, he died. So I just missed him.
How much contact did you have with Alvin?
Oh, daily. He was there all the time. He was there.
Did you, was that part of, did you have any working relationship? Did you ever talk to him about games or?
Oh yeah. He knew. Obviously, he knew all the old games. And Alvin was a great conversationalist. I never knew anybody who was such a great extemporaneous speaker. He could stand up in front. Alvin.
Oh,
He could
Alvin.
stand up in front of a crowd and talk as if he was reading from a script.
Yep,
He was a great
he
speaker.
was a good speaker.
He, when we went to the AMOA show for Cleopatra for the first time, somebody thought it would be a great idea, because this is our first solid state game, to have our first flipper game. And he turned up a Humpty Dumpty somewhere. And he brought it in, and was just assumed that I was going to work on it because it was kind of rough. And I did. That was a real nice time because during those months I spent half the day working on the new game I was working on, half the game restoring this Humpty Dumpty. That was great. That was a lot of fun. And I remember that I had to replace the motor. The motor was bad in it, but it had the fiber cam, and a small motor shaft, And I remember you said, well, why not just replace the whole motor? And I said, well, no, we got to keep as much of the old parts as we can, So I put in a new motor and drilled out the fiber cam, for the motor shaft. So, and that game was at the show, but he would come in and watch the progress of it,
Really
Well, during that time, it just so happened that I was doing the foreign games, and I would get orders for these games, and I could keep track of the totals, because some of the domestics came my way too. If there was a variation in the domestic, because we had variation. We had remember domestic L.A. and domestic San Francisco, and because they demanded ground wires in certain places. They demanded that the legs be grounded, and the front door be grounded.
Minor changes.
Yeah, minor, but they were variations, So I had to deal with that, and I would see the orders coming through, so I could see here's 100 games for France and 5 games for Hong Kong, and so I kept the running total, and that's when I was really surprised to see that Spirit of '76 went over 10,000.
I know we were going pretty good there for quite a few years.
We were.
And that's really what caused us not to get into the electronics as soon as we should have.
Yeah.
We were doing too good.
Yeah.
We were making money hand over fist, knocking them out.
And we saw some of these electronic games, and they were not good.
No.
I didn't like what we saw. The display. Bally came out with one, and the displays were all jittery.
Well, we should have been into it though much sooner. And it's really probably my fault that we didn't do it.
Well,
because I should have seen it coming better than I did.
We got one game in from Chicago Coins, a solid state game. It was like a solid state combination video pinball kind of thing. I remember this. We put it in the game room and plug it in, turn it on, let it power up, and you could turn the fluorescent lights on and off real fast, and the thing would add replays. Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah. That's why we're not getting into solid state.
They were located at the L shape of our building on Plina Street.
Yeah.
We backed up to each other.
Well, where was Genco then? I thought Genco was next to Chicago Coin, or Genco. I'm not sure.
They were on Ashland Avenue.
They weren't close. They weren't touching.
Oh yeah, it was only about 2 blocks, 3 blocks.
Okay, but they weren't touching. I thought they were.
No, we were touching it.
Yeah.
So we knew Chicago Coin pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have a small collection of games. I mentioned Sally was really my first game, and then I built Southpaw, of course, and I have a bingo, I have a 1-ball, I have a pay table, the big 3 of gambling pinballs. The pay table is a Western game. Probably worked on it when he was in high school. It's called Flying High from 1936.
I worked on Flying High.
See,
I remember that game.
I don't think there's anybody that has one of your games older than that, probably.
Oh,
So,
I couldn't. No.
Yeah.
That had to be 37.
36, or I think 36, 37, yeah.
37.
The only Gottlieb game I have in my collection is a Watch My Line.
Oh my goodness.
Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I wanted that game because of the weird, non-flipper.
That's Harry Mabs.
Well, it was 5-star final all over again,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah. That was Harry Mabs' design.
Yeah. And then the 2 games I got when I sold the Bensonville sign, I was looking for an early Williams game with that horizontal ball lift. Remember their early ball lift was just sideways.
Yeah.
And I wanted a game with that, just because. And I traded with a guy back east. And no, I take that back. I saw an ad for a Williams Rainbow. A Rainbow was the second game they made where the ball went all the way around the playfield and came out. Remember? They only made 2 of them. And I really wanted that game because I hadn't seen that game since I was 6 years old. I wanted that, and I began to think, this sign is worth more than just one game. So I started talking to this guy. He was back east, and he said, I've got this game with the horizontal ball lift, and I'll take both games. It turns out that game with the horizontal ball lift has flippers. which I didn't expect. Yeah. So it was
they added on?
no, it was original. It was in that transition years, flippers coming in, this ball lift going out.
Oh.
So I'm really happy to have that in my collection. That's a Williams, Tennessee. So, and that's about all I've got set up right now. I had a Beach Queens. I sold that, and so it's a small collection. It's a small collection. Well, let me show you this. We made a game in the later years called Q*bert. Were you there for that?
What's it?
Q*bert.
Never heard of it.
It was a little character that they invented for video. This was supposed to sweep the nation. It was going to just become, as popular as the Victor dog, they thought. So we also made a pinball game out of it. And they thought they might be making some toys and some premiums. There's Q*bert. And this is like a trivet, a coaster. That is a prototype. That's probably the only one in existence. You ever saw that?
Never saw it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it.
So
Did Q*bert do well as a video game?
I think so. I think it was pretty popular.
But
yeah.
you said you built a pinball machine?
I didn't. Maybe Alan might have. Yeah, there was a game that went with it, a pinball that went with it.
A one-off?
No. It ran down the line. It was in production. Whatever they were producing at that time, whatever production was in those years. Not much probably. Let's see here. Oh yes, a bag of tricks.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is a shooter's shield. Looks this beautifully, nicely chromed and preserved. You know what that's from?
Beautiful.
Isn't that nice? Got the
That
Gottlieb
is.
signature on it.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
Where do you think that's from? It doesn't look like anything on the regular games, does it?
Don't know.
Daily races.
Daily races.
New daily races. Yeah, had that shooter shield.
With D. Gottlieb and Company in Boston on it?
Yeah,
Like that?
yeah.
Daily races. Oh my goodness.
This is a pencil that you gave me. So you probably designed a
Oh,
lot of
my
games on that
goodness.
thing. You gave me when I needed something to do drafting with.
Is that right?
I used that pencil right up until AutoCAD, till we stopped making manual drawings.
Amazing.
That's your pencil.
Amazing. Oh, that is great.
Here is an original switch
Oh
hole
my
cleaner.
goodness.
Look at there, huh?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Switch cleaner.
Unbelievable. And the case.
The old case. That was before my time. When did you guys
We
start
always
doing?
carried
Yeah,
those in our
I
pocket.
never had one though. I don't.
John, you have to explain what that is.
Oh, this is a switch cleaner, cleaning switch points. It's diamond dust. We didn't use carborundum or anything. These were specially made. Well, not specially made, but we used them. They were expensive. They were actually kept in a vault, remember, because it had diamond dust on it.
Yeah.
Somebody might steal the diamonds.
We'll see.
Was that issued to you?
Yeah. Not this, because I never had this. I think this was Eddie's. I think this might have been Eddie's, or maybe Frank's.
It might have been mine, because I had one just like that. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't think I have it anymore.
Yeah.
'Cause I probably gave it to somebody.
Yeah. Now here's a tool.
Did we wear shop coats when you were there?
No.
I was
Maybe on.
I was over on Plina Street,
Yeah.
I guess. Or no,
I
not
never
Plina, on Costner Avenue.
I never
think we
saw
all
it.
wore shop coats.
I think this might be yours too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The switch cleaner with a soldered on clip.
With a clipper.
Yeah. This is for adjusting switches. It's just a plain switch adjuster. There's a million of them out there, but somebody put this clip on so it would fit in a pocket. I think it was you. Yeah. Here's a tool you might remember what this is.
That's for lacing cables.
Yes,
For,
putting wires
for
under
pudging.
pudging. Yeah,
Pudging. That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
we
Or a
called it,
spudger,
pudging.
pudger, spudger. I'm not sure which. I
Yeah,
thought
pudge-
Moravec called it a
pudging.
spudger. Yeah,
We
it was
pudged it.
like for digging underneath the lacing to add a wire to a lace cable.
Spell that, Wayne.
Oh, I can't spell pudging.
Pudgy?
Pudging.
P-U-D-G. I would think.
Pushing, shoving.
Yeah.
But you had a nickname for it.
Yeah, it was pudging.
Pudger.
Pudgy.
Yeah.
We pudged.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just get underneath the lacing like this and force the wire underneath and go to the next one and go to the next one. And that way you had the wire under the lacing.
You didn't want to lay when you had an error in your cable
Yeah.
and the game, you didn't want to lay the wire on top and just catch it here and there
Right.
because it would look unfinished.
Right.
So you had to pudge the wire through the cable so it looked like it was normal.
One loop at a time. You know,
Yeah,
you
one
did-
loop
yeah,
at a time.
Yeah. I use this.
Oh,
These
sure.
tools, I use these tools. And then here's something that's a little less common. You know what that is?
No, I don't recognize it. Don't recognize
See the
it.
hole in the end? And the flat?
Oh, that's for putting pins in the board.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Put them there.
For setting the pins.
And that hole goes down just the right distance down to
Yeah.
for the pin.
For the
laying
depth, yeah.
Pin in the board.
See, down at the bottom of the play field where the card holder begins, we would put a hardened, like a nail, a headless nail, because it could happen that the ball might lie there. You know, if the ball's dirty or the play field's dirty, it could lie there. So we put a hardened pin there so when the ball came out, it would sort of bounce against it and keep moving to the out hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did save a couple of these.
Oh
It's
yeah.
one of the original jumpers that we had in engineering.
I got a slew of those. They still have
Again,
some.
very usable.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
usable. Well, let's see here.
We used to hang them around our neck like a
Yeah,
stethoscope.
Now, after I had been there about a year or so, apparently they had trouble with people just walking into the plant on the side door. You know, friends would come in and visit people who were working, and they wanted to stop that, you know. So they issued badges. Remember the badges?
No.
Yeah, we had to wear badges, and that's what I was issued initially. Remember those? You must have
No.
had a badge.
I don't think I ever had one.
I thought they would have issued those to everybody.
No. What year was this?
Let's see. 73.
73.
Yeah. Date issued 3/13/73.
Huh. Oh, I can't read it.
Yeah, it's hard to read. It's not enough light. But that's me.
That's you.
And then sometime Lola was doing this. Lola was handling this. She issued the badges.
Huh.
And then I lost this badge. I don't know what happened to it. I thought I'd lost it. I had to go get another one. And Lola says, I'm supposed to charge you for this, but I won't charge you for it. And
Charge
so
you for it.
there's my second badge. See a slightly different picture. I had the disco curls at the time.
That's you?
That's me.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
We enlarged
That
it.
is unbelievable. You can't
Yeah.
put that one.
And then finally in the bag was one tube of each. The original
Oh,
white
oh
and
my
black glue.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to have those. I'm going to keep them.
I have some at home. I'll send you some if you want. I have,
No, no.
Explain what you got.
These are tubes of lubricant that were used on the game. The black lube is a graphite grease that was used on step gears, and the white is I don't know what that was made of, some kind of silicone, or it was used on the discs, wiper discs.
Yeah.
And
We called it white, but it was really yellow.
well, yeah, white lube, black lube, yeah, indispensable.
Yep,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's all I've got. That's all I got in my treasures here. Here's something that you might remember this. This is an effort to make a new kind of bumper, a ball bumper. Remember that? The ball would hit that and the ball would rise and close a switch. The idea was sort of like make scoring posts.
No,
Yeah, they never made that one either. Oh, this you'll remember.
Oh, good.
This
Challenger.
is Challenger, and that's in the engineering department. In fact, that's where I sat when I did light boxes.
I think
You
I got a
remember that?
picture of that in my book.
Yeah.
That game was designed by a camel.
What's the story? You didn't design it.
Well,
You had to be part of
I had
it.
a hand in it.
Yeah, you had to. Yeah.
Smith and I and Alvin and who else? Somebody else's. Take it away. Take it away.
This is the last time we were together.
3 or 4 people can't design anything.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it takes
I
one
agree.
person to design something, and oh
Remember
my goodness,
that?
yeah.
That was at the expo.
What's that? About 2 years ago?
No, it was a little longer ago than that. You can see that is, and that's Judd, right over here.
Yeah, Judd came to Expo and talked to us for just a few minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and then did you walk him out to his car?
No, I was getting ready for my gambling pinball speech. I can't believe I didn't try to beg him to stay and listen to it. I would like to have gotten his feedback on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he probably wouldn't have stayed, but because he was in pretty bad shape that day.
Yeah.
But somebody walked him out to the car. I don't know if it was me or I thought you did it. But,
No, I definitely didn't.
Then it must have been me. You know, it's so sad to see these guys get old. You know, fortunately, I never got old.
I agree.
Yeah.
Recognize that? Here is a play field. And see if you recognize the play field.
Daily races.
Yeah.
My goodness. My goodness. Win, place, and show.
And purse.
You know, that's all they knew in those days. Win, place, show, and purse.
Yeah, yeah. And then you remember this.
Queen of Hearts.
That way. You remember that?
Yeah,
What's
well,
the story of that? Why would anybody use that as an advertising? That doesn't seem like that would be very persuasive as an advertisement.
Oh. Queen of Hearts. Why not?
Well, but you barely see the game. You barely see the game on there. There are probably not too many of these.
But the name is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there ever a regular flyer? But you might know. Was there ever a real flyer for Queen of Hearts? There was. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Sure, there's a real flyer.
so what was the idea of this?
I have no idea why.
Remember how many of these were made?
I wonder if Gottlieb actually
Well,
made
it's a gimmick. It's a big playing card, so I guess
Yeah.
Big-
why not?
And nothing on the back. Yeah.
No?